Ben Domenech, contributing editor to the Spectator, Fox News contributor. Hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm good this morning, Hugh. How are you?
Good. You know, Ben, I've already declared that should Leader McConnell retire at the end of this term or thereafter, I'm supporting Dr. John Thorne for his replacement. Do you have a favorite in that three Johns race? John Barrasso, John Thune, and John Cornyn?
Well, it's so I just have to declare my priors, which is that I was John Cornyn's chief speechwriter for 2.5 years. I think very highly of him, and certainly think that he would be a good leader. I think in terms of handicapping the race, I think a lot of people think that John Thune would be in the lead, in part because he's almost a decade younger than the other two, and I think that people kind of want to have a real generational shift. But I think that look, it's a very close thing at the moment, and a lot of this has been going on behind the scenes, conversations that they've all been having, and in terms of the challenge that Republicans have going into the election next year, the McConnell team is very aware of the fact that his presence as leader does hamper their ability to make this about the age and senility of the president of the United States. And that's something that I think that a lot of Republicans are mindful of. They're also concerned, frankly, just about Mitch generally. It's one of these situations where these things happen as you get older. But if Mitch McConnell was not the leader, if he was just the senator, you really wouldn't see the kind of attention paid to it that you have in the natural spotlight that comes with that. Jim Risch is a senator. If he ran into me, tomorrow on the corner, I would have no idea who he was. Couldn't pick him out of a lineup. But it's one of these situations where when you're the leader of the Republican Party, in the majority or the minority, you attract that attention on a daily basis, and that's why it matters more when you have these moments that I think we've seen. If you know anybody who's achieved that level of age, it's not infrequent that sort of thing happens. And clearly McConnell is, with it most of the time, which is not something that you could say, about Dianne Feinstein or, maybe other members of the body historically. So we'll see what happens here. But I do think that there is a possibility that he steps down from leadership but does not actually retire from the Senate itself, that he sticks around in that.
I'll be surprised if that happens. Last time I saw the leader was in December in person, and he was like 100% Mitch McConnell and talking inside baseball on Senate races. Then he fell down the stairs, and I read yesterday that the doctor said he had a concussion. This is very common for people coming out of a concussion protocol. In the NFL, it's like 2 weeks. In the Senate, it's like 2 years to come out of the concussion protocol because nobody notices that you've gone in. But I understand it's a rather routine thing. I just can't believe in the middle of a session that they would have a transition. It would be a nightmare because he got like the best staff in Washington.
Well, I think that it would be a real challenge for them to deal with, but I also think that this is something where they don't want to have, we've had these kind of viral moments, but, it could have been a lot worse, let's put it that way. And I think
Ben, let me ask you about age. You knew Senator McCain very well, and I have known a lot of people very well who've gotten older. I don't believe Joe Biden can win this election against anyone. I think viscerally independents who do not care about the chatter and tune in think he's an old man who cannot do this job. Do you think he's going to be their nominee?
I've been kind of a holdout. You and Stuart Varney have asked me this question occasionally, and I still am of the mind that he's going to be the nominee. And the reason I think is that if you look at the general election polling as they do, they see this as a situation where before they've taken one ad buy against the former president Donald Trump, it's a coin flip situation. And they feel like they can pound the crap out of the former president, and also do so, of course, with the help of a compliant media and a landscape that they feel like is going to improve economically over the next year. They're a lot more optimistic than some of us. But it's one of these situations where I think getting him out of that position forces you to pick someone else. And ideas don't run for president; people do. And that's one of the problems that they're faced with. The people that they have in order to supplant him are not more popular than he is in key portions of the country. And I think that that's something that, as much as he is infirm, as much as he is aged, I think that they want to roll that old horse out on the track again because he's the only one that they've had who's proven.
Yeah, just as a personal matter, yesterday my wife went and visited an old friend of ours who I saw him 10 weeks ago. He precipitously declined in 10 weeks. Precipitously. And at that age, it can happen, and it could happen in the
It
middle of the
happens
campaign.
slowly, and then all at once. And I think
All that's exactly, and that's what I think we're seeing. Let me go to Idalia, because Idalia, the Salvation Army, and the link to Team Rubicon are still over at HughHewitt.com because it's a mess. It's a nightmare. Ben, how do you think that impacted Ron DeSantis's race, if at all? Because he was once again competent, efficient, to the point.
Well, I think that he got some very positive press coverage, out of it because it's showing him in his element, which is actually handling the challenges of the day. And I think that that's one of the reasons why you saw the former president not stop attacking him during that portion, even though it seems gauche. It's one of these things where I think he wanted to kind of stomp on what was anticipated to be a very positive moment that shows the kind of capability that Ron DeSantis would bring if he was elevated to the presidency. But I don't know how much he's going to be able to build off of that, because it doesn't seem like the American people care that much about that kind of thing on a national scale the way that they used to. I'll be curious to see if he's able to do that. I think in a place like Iowa, it might matter more, and that's something that we can certainly wait and see what the polls are going to look like. But
apropos of nothing, Ben, the last time I watched Washington Week in Review is probably 15 years ago. Do you watch it?
No, I do not.
Okay, so Jeffrey Goldberg is now moderating it. So they basically sold that sponsorship.
Oh,
I get it.
yeah.
I understand.
Okay.
And so now it's down to 835,000 people watching what was the preeminent news and public affairs show of my youth. Why do people not watch it anymore? And I don't believe it's cable and Special Report, although a lot of people do watch Special Report for the roundtable for that reason. It's got some representation of everybody. But why do you think it's so precipitously declined?
I'm not sure that I'm prepared to offer an opinion on this. I'm the worst person in the world when it comes to evaluating the performance of the business that we are in terms of political commentary, because I consume so little of it on TV. I have a TV in my office. We moved into this house 2 years ago. It's still not hooked up.
Yeah.
so I have to admit, I watch everything in terms of online and that kind of thing, and the clips. One thing I will say, though, is, look, I think that one of the reasons that we appreciate, political commentary where we have representation like that is because it's so rare in this day and age. The worst thing that Jon Stewart ever did was to kill the original Crossfire, because even if you didn't like the yelling, you actually got a representation of two different sides of different opinions on the news of the day. And I think that people deserve more and more of that. But instead, what are we getting? We're getting Jen Psaki talking to her old boss about how Democrats are great and Republicans suck. And it's one of these things that I think is just people are tired of it. They want to actually see a debate, and that's why I hope that we can actually get back eventually to having more debate, having more town halls. Even within the party. We deserve to be having a Republican debate right now about Ukraine. That is on the level of what we saw about the Panama Canal back in the day, where we have actual major figures of opinion and of political depth, going back and forth about how we're going to find a way out of this.
Cable news has become a sort of televised gymnasium where other people exercise the opinions you already hold so that you're better at displaying them when your turn comes at the dinner table. It really is. There isn't much like the panel on Special Report. And I think that's a disaster. I had a great conversation with the Democrat this week, Ro Khanna, on air. And I'm sure he took a lot of incoming.
Yeah, no, I know. I read the transcript afterwards, yes.
And you see, what I compliment Ro for is that he's committed to the de-escalation of political warfare, as am I. And de-escalation actually requires places where you meet and confer with the other side, right?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that is unfortunate is we've gotten to a point where, as you said, people want to they want to wear the person's jersey at the table.
Yes.
And that's not actually healthy. That's the kind of thing that leads to people screaming at each other in restaurants. Instead, I think what we actually have to have is the kind of reasoned debate where people come out of it with perhaps a different set of knowledge that they had before they went in, and that's something that I think is very beneficial to the country. Finding the space for that to happen, though, is very, very difficult in a stage at which all of these different corporate sponsors that are backing entities, including shows, they don't really want to feature the kind of things.
Think on this, Ben.
Featured for that.